before we get to the debates, just talk about these two Supreme Court hearings. I had mentioned them last night before our debate prep, but one was the ruling on the census question, which, is it's a win to the extent that it may be revisited in some fashion, but it would have been such a huge blow to the credibility of the Supreme Court to side with the Department of Justice's explanation as to why they wanted this question on immigration, or I should say citizenship, in the census question, when we now have literally an entire documentary record of how they are lying about that. Like in some respects, you would almost want the Supreme Court, if they had the capacity, to fine the Department of Justice for contempt or something, for lying so obviously to all these courts. Because this information came through, but that's encouraging. But let's just talk about the gerrymandering one, because the implications of that Merrick Garland seat now are that we have at least a half a dozen states who can have situations like we have in Wisconsin, where you have 54% of the votes go to Democrats and the Republicans control 65% of the seats in the state legislature. I mean, this is just so effed up. It's unbelievable.
Well, and it's so incredibly openly partisan. I mean, like, this isn't even the argument for it, which just cracks me up. Yesterday on Twitter, there were a lot of Republicans, people like Scott Walker, that were making these excuses for this, saying, oh, well, it's perfectly fair because all the Democrats are in the cities. So that's, so they get representation for their city. And then, but there's all these other counties out here and other places where, there aren't, where the Republicans are. And I'm going, we don't have representation for rocks or for cows. That's really not what this is about. It was supposed to be that humans, actual human beings, people who live in this country, would be, represented proportionately in our government, in our government. And, they're just basically saying, yeah, we're, all the cities, they're just sort of ghettoized into these, these small districts where you get one representative, and, that's how we do it. But then we're going to allocate all this, so we're going to make sure that there are many more people represented by the Republican, the right-wing conservative Republicans who would be more likely to represent people out in the rural areas. And that's really what they're saying. And it's so blatantly undemocratic and so clearly partisan that it kind of shocks me, to be honest with you. I really didn't expect that they would do it, and I don't know why. Everybody said, they're going for it, they're going to do it. But it really is. I mean, I think that this is a signal of just how openly and blatantly partisan this court is really going to get. And, going to the census question, look, Chief Justice Roberts, apparently he was the swing vote, and he voted to send the case back, and sort of mentioned and it was mentioned in the opinion, they weren't exactly honest. They didn't exactly tell us the truth. So they, yes, they lied blatantly. But he took that position. Most of the legal scholars that I've read say, he's trying to show that the court really isn't so nakedly partisan, and it doesn't pass the smell test, because when it comes down to something truly important and consequential, this court is as far right as we've ever seen, and we're going to see more and more of this. I mean, that that the Federalist Society lawyers and the Republicans in the legal community are pushing as hard as they can to get these cases before the court. And they're going to, and look, they don't even have to hurry, because this court majority is going to be there for a long time.
It's going to be super durable. I think Thomas is going to retire he may retire in the next month or two. He may announce that, like literally days away from announcing it, or
I think he could wait and retire, 3 months before the election, and let Mitch McConnell just kind of stick it to the Democrats, just for fun.
Yep, I think that's what they're going to do. I think that's going to be a way of engaging. They're going to put that in their back pocket as a way of engaging a lot of those Christian conservative voters who came out and voted for Trump last time, because it's going to be a reminder. It's going to there's going to be this sort of like I think they look back at the Kavanaugh hearing and say that was helpful, and they may or may not be right about that, but I think they're thinking that was helpful. And maybe the next person we bring up there will offend the sensibilities. The questioning by the Dems will offend the sensibilities enough of people, and it'll bring more people out to vote. So I suspect,
Right.
He's going to resign probably this time next year, and McConnell may just wait until August to start the hearings so that this is fresh in people's minds. Let me just say that, though, on the gerrymander thing, the idea, like the argument that they're making about we should have areas represented. I mean, I think there's something to that insofar as we have states that are represented, right? That theoretically have different regions that may have different types of problems. But the argument is just shown to be BS when you have these different types of regions. The rural parts of Wisconsin, let's say, are overruling what can happen in the cities. It cuts both ways. If you could say these individuals are being denied Republican, in all of these rural sections of the state, which is, I think, not quite correct. But even if that was, that's not the way that state legislatures work. They dictate over the cities, or let me put it this way: their purview is beyond the local geography that they inhabit. So it's just, at the end of the day, it's all about numbers. I mean, right,
and on a national level, let's not forget. I mean, all these states get 2 senators. California gets the same number of senators as Alaska, and we have 30 times the population. I mean, it's insane. So this is there is that sort of on the national level, there is that kind of enhanced representation for underrepresented areas, say. So, I mean, not that has anything to do with the House, but there is this other House in the U.S. Congress that sort of makes up for it.
I also find it hilarious that he is arguing that Walker does that it doesn't mean they should have a larger share of the seats just because they win big by big margins in some districts. Well, the reason why they're winning by such big margins in a lot of these districts is because they've been drawn in such a way to corral as many Democratic votes in as specific of a location as possible. That is exactly the plan with the gerrymandering. And we should say that one of these cases that are that was in front of the Supreme Court, I think it was North Carolina, those districts were literally drawn by the same guy who came up with the plan to put the question on the census. That guy Hofstadter.
Right.
And so it would have made it that much more embarrassing, I think, for the Supreme Court to do it now. And I guess I don't know. I'm of two minds on that, because it would have been nice to rip the Band-Aid off and to sort of stop with this pretense that the Supreme Court is anything other than completely politicized and partisan. And this thin veneer that basically, keeps any sort of dramatic reform at bay or calls for it, I think is really I mean, I think that's part of I think that's what Robert's thinking is in this. But all right, let's talk about the debates.